Hey, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and in this video we are going to be talking about how the Hoka Skyward X compares to the Adidas Prime X 2.0 Strung. Now, if you've been looking at both of these shoes, and we're trying to decide whether you should go for this kind of max stack super trainer or this max stack super trainer, then you have come to the right place. Now, myself, Nick and Kieran have all been running in these two shoes, and what we're going to do is take you through the key stats and how they compare, and then get into our running experience, and then ultimately let you know whether you should go for this, the Hoka Skyward X, or this, the Adidas Prime X 2.0 Strung. So here's the tale of the tape for these two max cushion super trainers. Let's start with price, and the Prime X 2.0 Strung is the pricier of the two shoes by a considerable amount in both the UK and the US. Weight-wise, the Prime is the lighter of the two shoes, though only by a few grams. The Adidas shoe has the higher drop and the bigger stack height at both the heel and the forefoot, reaching that World Athletics approved stack height for elite racing. The upper are noticeably different, with Hoka offering a flat knit mesh one and Adidas using its strung material for a noticeably thinner booty style upper feel. Getting into the midsole, and Hoka employs a dual density midsole setup made up of PEBA and EVA foams with a carbon plate sandwiched in the middle. The Prime X has 3 layers of Adidas's Light Strike Pro foam and 2 carbon fibre plates to make it fit for faster runs. The outsole, Adidas opts for a continental rubber one, while Hoka uses its abrasion rubber outsole and noticeably offers a little bit more rubber in those key places to boost durability.
Comes to fit of the two shoes, I've got my normal UK size of both of them, which is a UK 9. With both these brands, that's a US 9.5. The fit of the Hoka Skyward X, I think, is very good. It's not as narrow as some Hoka shoes, although I'm not always the best judge of that because I have a narrow foot, but I found it perfectly accommodating in the front of the shoe. Good hold around the heel and midfoot. I don't love how high the heel tab is at the back of the shoe in terms of Achilles irritation, but didn't cause anything too significant in my testing. There's a much more fussy fit with the Prime X 2 Strung, but it is still a good fit, I'd say, in my normal running shoe size. I have heel locked it because I sometimes get rubbing from the way Adidas designs the heel of its shoes. It takes a bit more getting on, but the upper is a bit more dialed in than the one on the Hoka, which is good if you're going to go and up the speed in a shoe like this, because you need a nice tight hold on top given the amount of wobbly foam you have underneath. Overall, I would say stick to your normal running shoe size with both of these. The Hoka probably has the more accommodating fit all round.
So in terms of fit, I've had both these shoes in a UK size 8. That is my typical running shoe size. I know I'd say I've been pretty happy with the fit experience I've had on both of these shoes. I feel like going true to size has worked for me. I think it's probably going to work for most people. Now, I'll start with the Hoka shoe, and I would say it is, first and foremost, the easier shoe to put on, a little bit more traditional in that sense in terms of that fit. The space up front of the toes, very good, not typically Hoka. You know, compare it to things like the Mac X, the Mac 6, where they are typically a little bit more narrow. Definitely is a little bit more roomy and has been in my kind of more narrow, skinny feet. So I think it's definitely got that if you want that in a kind of bigger Mac stack shoe. And I think general, the lockdown has been very good. There's a lot more padding in the heel, in the tongue there. So it's definitely a little bit more supportive and has a bit more of a comfort edge to that overall fit. I've had no issues in terms of that lockdown, no kind of issues in terms of heel rub either. So yeah, fit very good in general on the Skyward X. I would say on the Adidas shoe, and it is a more kind of dialed in, a more locked in kind of fit, give it something that feels a little bit more kind of racing focused. The space up front of the toes has been very good for me. Again, you know, it does open up a little bit more there. So from that point of view, it's been very good. And then it does kind of just narrow in a little bit more the midfoot. As I say, give you something that feels a little bit more racing focused. It's a lot more minimal at the heel, and that has caused initially some kind of issues in terms of heel rub and lockdown. It does mean playing around the lacing a little bit more to get that good kind of strong lockdown in this shoe. So I would say that has the kind of more racing feel in terms of that fit, in terms of what you're getting the upper. The Skyward X is a lot more accommodating, definitely feels a little more built for comfort. Those were what I would say are the key differences, but I think going true to size in general with both of these shoes should be fine for most people.
So when it comes to fit, I ran in a UK 8.5 in both these shoes. That would be my regular running shoe size in the Adidas and in the Hoka. The way I differentiate the fit here, I think the Adidas has a much snugger, tighter race fit. The booty fit as well. If you've got big high insteps like me, they could be a real struggle to wrestle them on. Once they're on, they're super comfortable. They hold really nicely. There's just about enough room into the toe box. It is a bit of a squish in there. It's definitely got that kind of race feel. Overall though, I think they're comfortable. They hold my feet well, no slipping in the heels. Even though they've got those minimal heel collars and all of that kind of stuff, I've had no trouble with these shoes. When you go into the Hoka Skyward X, I would describe feel across the top of the midfoot the same. It sort of hugs. There's much more room in the toe box. You've got a bit more clearance across the top of the toes. Overall into that toe box, there's just a bit more of a roomy fit. So if you like it a bit roomier, the Skyward X is going to have that more. But overall, yeah, good fit on both of them actually. I have no trouble with the slipping. I guess the other thing to say with the Hoka Skyward X, you've got a more traditional heel collar, which holds firm and secure, a little bit of cushioning, a little bit of extra padding. So maybe that would be something over longer distances. Feel more comfortable. If you ever have any problems with heel rubbing, maybe this one's going to be slightly better than the Adidas. But overall, I think they've both got good fit, and I would recommend going true to size in both.
I enjoyed running in both of these shoes, even though I'd say probably this style of shoe is not one that I would personally stick in my own rotation. You know, the Mega Stack super shoe is just something that I don't really feel a need to have, but they are fun shoes to run in. I did have fun with both of these shoes. I put quite a lot of miles on the Prime X2 Strung when it came in. I've got about 85k on it and used it for quite a lot of running. Lots of easy to steady runs, which is something I do quite a lot of in my training, some all-out easy runs, and I've gone and done a hard mile session in it where I did 6 1-mile reps, with the last being at a 5:10, and I do think it's a fun shoe, a versatile shoe. It's got a lot of speed in it. I don't think it's got enough all-out speed in it for that session I did in the miles. I remember the last one being like, I just don't want to be in this shoe. I'd rather be in something a bit lighter and nippier. It's got a lot of booming bounce, that's for sure. It's a very bouncy shoe, and you can run quick in it, and you can go and run fast long distance races in it, I'm sure, but I still think it's just a bit too big. It's more a shoe that I view as a very fun all-round trainer, and it did a good job of that for me. Skyward X does the same thing. It's a fun all-round trainer, lots of bounce, but I think it's a bit more geared up towards easy running, cruising through long runs. It's not something that I really found enjoyable to move at speed in. I did one slightly faster run in the shoe, and it just felt like, yeah, it's okay, but you know, there are lots of shoes I'd rather be in for it. I don't think you're really getting the benefit of this big design on a run like that. Where I did enjoy it more was a long run, where I just consistently found I was running a bit faster than I expected for my effort level, and it just feels nice for bouncing along. It's a more stable shoe than the Prime X. You've got a much wider base, and it feels a bit more grounded. Still feels very big, it's very bouncy, but it's a bit more muted and controlled, I'd say, than the Prime X2, and all in all makes it for a nice, enjoyable trainer for easy runs, long runs, that kind of thing. Did a short run running in both shoes at the same time, and you can feel the extra aggression and bounce you get from the Prime X for sure. It's a springier shoe. It's a shoe that feels like it can go faster, feels notably lighter, and even feels a bit smaller on the foot, even though the size is huge with both of these shoes. Then with the Hoka, you've got a wider, more stable design. Like I say, a bit more grounded, especially if you're heel striking, you get a lot more support back there. Much more stable design as well. Like with the Prime X2, I can feel my foot roll a little bit inwards on each step, and I'm not someone who uses a stability shoe in general. I don't really pronate that much in normal stack shoes, but when you get to this kind of size with the cutouts, the soft foam in the midsole can be a little bit wobbly, and that would be a concern for me if you can use it a lot for daily training, lots of long runs, and that's where the Hoka probably has a bit more of an edge, because it's a bit more reliable shoe. It's a shoe you can put on a lot without any real instability fears, despite the fact it is a very big shoe, but because of that you lose some of the aggression and speed you get from the Prime X2, which is a bit more geared up for fast running or even racing.
So into my general running experiences with these two shoes, and I'd say first and foremost, they are enjoyable shoes to run in. They are very fun shoes to run in as well too, for very different reasons. I think ultimately there are a few reasons that I think will dictate which shoe maybe or might work for you best. But ultimately I think they're two very nice shoes to run in. I'll start with the weights. Now these aren't super light shoes, either of these shoes, but your Skyward X is slightly heavier. I think in isolation, if you don't factor in the Adidas shoe, I think it handles that weight well, but I think ultimately you compare it to the Adidas shoe, which is a few grams lighter. In terms of what you're getting in that upper, it just feels like a lighter shoe to run in compared to the Skyward X, and you know, you wouldn't think there was a few grams in it from that point of view. I think ultimately what that does or enables is for these shoes to work slightly different or feel different when you are running a little bit quicker in, and I think ultimately that's down to the weights, slight weight difference, but also in terms of what you're getting in the midsole. Now with the Adidas shoe, I think it definitely feels a nicer shoe to run fast in. I think when you ease off in that shoe, it feels awkward. It definitely feels less stable. It feels like you feel the stiffness of the kind of overall midsole. But when you run a little bit quicker in that shoe, and I definitely think you can run a bit faster in the Adidas shoe, almost engaging what you're getting in that midsole, that stiffness goes away and it kind of comes to life, I think, and it feels really nice to kind of roll through, and it feels energetic, propulsive, very exciting to run in that shoe. With the Skyward X, it is, in terms of what you're getting in the midsole, I still think it's quite nice in terms of that feel. I think, you know, it's plush without feeling overly plush. I think the combination of the two foams that you're getting there, the carbon plate, I think does give you a kind of pretty lively ride. It still feels pretty enjoyable. I think you can run probably moderate paces in it. You wouldn't want to do the kind of type of speed that you want to do in the Adidas, or it kind of enables you to do in the Adidas shoe. But I do think you can run a little bit quicker in this shoe. But I think if you're looking at something like a very faster kind of 10k, 5k run, maybe a race, I would be going for the Adidas shoe overall in comparison. I think that's the main thing for me. I think with the Skyward X, it feels more comfortable at slower, longer kind of cruising paces. Whereas I think you can cruise in the Adidas shoe, but in a very different way. And I think more faster up-tempo paces, when you ease off and try to run slow in the shoe, it just feels a lot more awkward. So for me, the Skyward X is a lot more stable, it's a lot more comfortable. You can cruise in this shoe, but I also think it feels like you're getting a quite enjoyable ride in there as well too. And it's protective as well, and feels a lot more kind of protective overall. And I think it's going to be a lot more accessible in terms of that experience. Other things, I think outsole wise, I think the gripping and traction has been absolutely fine. I've been generally running in drier conditions in both of these shoes in my kind of run testing with them. I'd say you're getting a little bit more rubber in the outsole on the Skyward X. I think ultimately it's going to probably give you a little bit more durability. Obviously adds to the overall weight of the shoe, but I think in terms of what you're going to get lifespan of these shoes, I think probably the Skyward X is going to give you a little bit more. I run a little bit more in the Skyward X as well too, compared to the Adidas shoe, and I think I'm not I'm seeing massive worrying amounts of kind of wear in that kind of outsole. So from an outsole point of view, I think maybe you're going to get a little bit more life out of the Skyward X, where I think you think of the type of runs, it's going to be designed for long, kind of easy runs, then that makes sense.
And in testing, I've done north of 50 miles in both of these shoes, much more than that in the Prime X2 Strung. I've marathon tested the Prime X2 Strung, done all-out mile tests and plenty of long time on feet, kind of mixed pace tests. In the Hoka Skyward X, I've also done longer runs up to about 90 minutes on feet, some slower as well, to see how they fare at easier pace, and the odd 10k with faster segments thrown in for both shoes. That's mostly been on road with the odd park path thrown in as well. Now, I loved the Strung X, but the X2 was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I don't think the upper change works. I much preferred having more control over the fit and the lockdown. I also think an already pretty unstable shoe is now even more so because of the bigger volume of squashy, sort of springy, wobbly Light Strike Pro foam that you've got here. So it's not a great shoe in corners, but it kind of works best when you're doing straight road urban city marathons. But despite that, I love running in this shoe. It's got fun, wild, crazy energy, and on the right day, moving with the right intent, I can definitely see this as a marathon PB potential shoe. It's got that energy sparing effect that you really need with 6 miles to go in a marathon, even if it won't be quite forgiving if you're not running well. It's kind of same as the Alpha Fly or the original Strung. There's an obvious price hike here to consider over the original Strung, and overall I think I preferred the first generation. So if you can find that for cheaper, I'd probably go for that over both of these shoes that we're going to talk about here. Now, when it comes to the Hoka Skyward X, I don't think I've ever been so confused by a shoe. For half a mile I can love it. For half a mile I'll then find it bizarre and slightly unnatural, and at times I found myself thinking it could be a good option to take on a 50-mile ultra like the Comrades, and 20 strides later I find the massive stack sometimes troublingly unstable, sometimes a bit too soft and sinky. And sometimes when I strike right, there's loads of energy and liveliness to it that feels really good. But there's an inconsistency here for me in the way that I run. And for me, I find this shoe sort of controls me rather than the other way around at times. It's a bit wild like the Prime X2 Strung. It's left me wondering what the shoe's really for. I'd never really sort of considered it as a Strung rival, being honest. Particularly not for racing. It just looked to be like a big kind of cruiser-like shoe for me. But then when you look at the core details, the big stack, the carbon plate, slightly lighter this shoe is, maybe this is a genuine racing rival after all. Anyway, to tease out the finer details, I did a side-by-side mile with one shoe on each foot, and here's what I found. So I've just done the side-by-side mile. I've got the Adidas Prime X2 Strung on the left foot. I've got the Hoka Skyward X on the right foot. Biggest difference here, I think, these are both wild shoes. They are both wild, slightly out of control shoes. You do have to work to control both of them. The difference here, I think, is that when I run and concentrate on how I'm landing in the Adidas Prime X2 Strung, I do feel like I control it much more than the Hoka Skyward X, which I still feel has this kind of inconsistent landing. The Skyward X definitely sort of softer. It takes a little bit more time for that foam and the plate to kick in and to respond and come back. There's a more immediacy in the Adidas Prime X Strung, and I really like that immediacy a bit more. The other thing I really notice when I'm doing this is the rockering on the Adidas Prime X Strung is far more pronounced. You really get that roll through from when you kind of land. If you're landing mid to forefoot on the toes, it kind of rolls you and then pings you. The foam compresses a little and it bounces back really quickly. The Skyward X, you've still got that big stack, but you just land a bit flatter. Maybe that's the drop as well. Just got a shallower drop, but it's softer. It takes a little bit more time for that foam to return. There's a bit more in the heel on the Skyward X, so if you want a bit more protection further back, you're going to get that. But the overall, the way that I would differentiate these shoes, I think the Adidas Prime X2 Strung is a much more poppy, lively, faster shoe. It's definitely a shoe I would consider racing a marathon in. I don't think I would choose the Hoka Skyward X. It just doesn't have the energy for me. It feels sort of somewhere between a cruiser, and sometimes it's got that life, but I find it a little bit ponderous, sometimes a bit sinky. Sometimes when I'm landing, I feel like I'm walking sand. I don't get that with the Adidas Prime X Strung. I just get punch with that. Get the best out of it when you're up and you're punching and you're really, really focusing on how you're landing and moving forward. And it doesn't really give you much of an option to be sort of back on your heels and sort of running with sort of more ragged or tired form. You've got to be using that shoe with good energy. The Skyward X, I think sort of sometimes it can make you feel like you can run with ragged form, but then it's still quite wobbly and a little bit uncontrolled. And the other thing I really think, despite the fact the Prime X2 Strung is the heavier shoe, because of the lightweight uppers and the way the sort of those uppers are a bit more racy, there's less kind of structure to the top of the shoe. I think it feels lighter on the foot. I think it runs lighter than the Skyward X, which feels a bit more shoe on the foot overall. So that's another big differentiator. Verdict then, and I think the way I split these shoes, for me the Adidas Prime X2 Strung is most definitely a race shoe, or at least a top end fast training shoe. It's a shoe you want to use to go at it, and it's better than the Skyward X for that kind of running. It's more immediate, it's more energetic, it's more aggressive. I find the rocker works better. I wouldn't use this shoe, I don't think, for daily training, easier mile daily training, because it's a bit wild. But for racing up to the marathon, I think it's a really fun shoe, though obviously it's not race legal. On the flip side, the Hoka Skyward X is more of a training shoe for me. I personally wouldn't choose it for my racing or even sort of for my top end efforts, but I'm not a massive fan of the shoe overall. I feel like it drops between two camps. It's not racy enough to race or be a shoe I'd choose for my faster runs, and it's not stable enough for daily training for me. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I feel like I've got alien boots controlling my gait. The ride is a little bit too inconsistent for me. There's an argument to say the Hoka Skyward X is more versatile than the Prime X2 Strung. I'd rather run fast miles in the Hoka than I would slow miles in the Strung X2. But even though the Prime X2 Strung lacks that versatility and has a bigger price tag, I think I would choose it over the Skyward X.
So my verdict on whether you should go for this, the Hoka Skyward X, or this, the Adidas Prime X 2.0 Strung, I think the way I look at it is these are two very different, for me, kind of max stack kind of daily trainer shoes, if that's what you're going to call it, super trainer shoes. I think if you're looking for that kind of max stack super trainer that you can run faster in, then I think it's going to be the Adidas shoe. If you want something that has that similar or fits that similar criteria, but it's better suited to running longer, easy runs, want that comfort, protection, want something more stable, then I would go for the Skyward X. Now, in terms of the shoe that I would use or probably use more frequently, I think it probably would be the Skyward X. I think I've used this more post my kind of initial kind of testing of these two shoes. I think the reason I put that down to is I've probably got shoes that kind of fit the profile of the types of runs that I would use, or probably look to use the Adidas shoe in. I think I look at other daily trainer shoes like the New Balance Rebel V4, which has a faster edge. You can ease off a little bit in that. Things like the Mach 6 as well too. I think those kind of shoes serve me in a similar way. That I think the Prime X 2.0 Strung, that's how I would use it. Whereas I think with the Skyward X, if I was looking for comfort, protection, something to go and use for a long run, I just wanted something to enjoy that kind of run and just feel really nice to run in, then it would be the Skyward X. And that's the shoe that ultimately, I think if I had to pick between the two, I would probably be going for that. But they're both very good shoes. As I said, both very fun shoes. And I think if you want the faster feeling shoe, it's the Adidas shoe. If you want the more comfortable shoe, that does allow you to run a little bit quicker in as well too. And I think it can handle that. It feels a lot more comfortable and more accessible. Then this is the shoe I'd be going for. And it's definitely the shoe I've spent a little bit more time in post-testing.
When it comes to the verdict, I think these are two slightly different kinds of max stack super trainers. The Prime X is the more speed focused one. It's a shoe you could even race in if you wanted. It doesn't really feel great for short, sharp reps and that kind of thing, but you can certainly cruise through fast, long runs, do kind of tempo sessions, easy to steady runs, and even just some general daily training. And it is a versatile shoe all round, but it's a bit faster, a bit more aggressive, and a bit less stable all round than the Skyward X, which feels more controlled and more of a daily trainer really that you could use for lots of relaxed runs. It's not so comfortable at all out speed. It's a big shoe, pretty heavy, not that punchy, but it does feel fun to roll around in on easy paces. Both of these shoes certainly have the fun factor. They also both have massive price tags, so that's something to consider as well. And like I said in the run test, neither are shoes I'd necessarily pick out myself to use in my rotation because they are so big. But if you're choosing between them, I would look at it that way. If you want the faster shoe, the bouncer shoe, the more aggressive shoe, it is the Prime X2 for sure. If you want more of a controlled daily trainer, then the Hoka Skyward X does it, I think. And for me, that probably makes it a slightly better pick because although the Prime X maybe has a bit more versatility, it's a bit more fun to run in, like I wouldn't use this for race and I wouldn't use it for my fastest sessions. So it ended up doing the same job as I do in the Hoka anyway, which is just lots of daily training runs, a bit of versatility there. And for those purposes, I think the extra stability and control you get with the Skyward X is probably welcome because like where I am, there's lots of broken pavements, cambered pavements, that kind of thing. And a more grounded, wide shoe like the Hoka just is a bit better for just relaxed runs. We don't really feel the need to have all that extra tech you have in the Prime X2. But it is the faster shoe and that will obviously benefit some people who are viewing it more as a real all-rounder that can do all your speed sessions, which I didn't feel the Skyward X was all that good at. Skyward X is also a lot cheaper though as well, so that's something to consider as well. So yeah, that's how I'd look at it. If you're looking for one shoe to do everything, probably the Prime X2 has more versatility. If you're looking for a bouncy daily super trainer that you can do lots of easy and long runs in, the Skyward X is a little bit more grounded, a little bit less fun, but probably a little bit more practical and effective for that purpose.
Okay, so there you have it. That is our take on how the Hoka Skyward X, compares to the Adidas Prime X 2.0 Strung. Now, if you've got any questions about this video, let us know in the comments. If you want to see any other comparison shoe videos with this shoe or this shoe, do let us know in the comments as well too. As always, like and subscribe, hit that little bell to find out about our latest videos, and yeah, we'll see you for the next Run Testers video.